Imagine waking up one day and suddenly realizing that the life you're living may not be your own. Every decision you've made, every belief you hold, and even the desires that drive you might not stem from the depths of your being, but rather from the expectations, conditioning, and unseen influences of the world around you. Consider for a moment, how much of your identity is a reflection of your authentic self? And to what extent is it a carefully constructed mask, shaped by external pressures? How often do you feel like you're simply playing a role, living according to a script written by society, your upbringing, or the fears that whisper in the back of your mind? Today, we embark on a journey to explore one of Carl Jung's most profound ideas, the notion that life truly begins only when you find yourself. But what does it actually mean to find yourself? Is it merely gaining self-awareness, or is it a deeper, more transformative process that can change your life? Stay with us. To find out, stay with us, because in the process of uncovering the mysterious forces that exert a defining influence on your personality, you can understand why the vast majority of people never find their true selves and how to break free from this vicious cycle. The final realization that will be presented possesses incredible power, capable of transforming not only your self-perception but also the nature of your interactions with the world around you. Carl Gustav Jung, a prominent innovator in the field of depth psychology, was a thinker whose ideas extended far beyond accepted theories about the mind, penetrating into the vast and hidden areas of the unconscious. Unlike many psychologists of that era, Jung did not believe that mental well-being was merely about adapting to societal standards. He viewed psychological development as a unique journey toward individuation, a process of becoming one's authentic self. However, the harsh reality is that most people never embark on this journey, remaining captive to the version of themselves that has been shaped by external factors. There are people whose existence is subject to external prescriptions. They do not bother to reflect on how well their life path harmonizes with their true essence. In search of confirmation of their own significance, they turn their eyes to the world around them, naively believing that finding happiness lies in approval from others, achieving ostentatious success, or strictly following accepted norms. However, deep in their souls lies an elusive but persistent feeling of dissatisfaction, a sense that something vitally important is missing. Carl Jung, the distinguished Swiss psychologist, argued that true life begins only when a person finds the courage to face the truth and stops running away from themselves. Before delving into understanding what it actually means to find yourself, it is necessary to realize what factors prevent most people on this path of self-discovery. From the moment of birth, each of us is subjected to a powerful process of conditioning. We are assigned names, endowed with a certain identity, and predetermined social roles. We are taught what is acceptable and what is not, what actions entail encouragement, and what actions entail punishment. This process is so subtle and gradual that we rarely question it. We adapt, obey the established rules, and over time learn to suppress those aspects of our personality that do not meet the expectations placed on us by society. Remembering the carefree years of childhood, it is easy to recall episodes when a sincere expression of feelings and thoughts ran into a wall of misunderstanding and condemnation. Perhaps in response to childish spontaneity, one had to hear calls to come down to earth, not take everything so close to heart, or indications of the inappropriateness of certain desires and emotions. Gradually assimilating these lessons, a person learns to hide their true feelings and impulses, concealing them from prying eyes. Thus begins the painstaking work of creating a mask, the very face that, according to Jung, is called the persona. The persona is a carefully constructed image that a person displays to the world around them. It serves as a kind of pass into society, facilitates the establishment of contacts, and helps to earn recognition. However, the more a person merges with this mask, the more they identify with it, the further they move away from their authentic self. There comes a moment when the individual begins to believe that the persona is their true face, forgetting about the deep essence that hides beneath the mask. But this is only one side of the coin. There is also another, the shadow. If the persona is what we present to the world, then the shadow is a carefully guarded secret, a repository for our fears, repressed desires, and everything we've ever rejected in ourselves. The shadow, like a dark twin, holds not only our weaknesses but also hidden talents. Ignoring this dark side doesn't make it disappear. On the contrary, it continues to operate insidiously, influencing our thoughts, actions, and emotional reactions. Rejected aspects of personality don't vanish without a trace. They manifest in unconscious forms, often as projections. Think back. Have you ever experienced an inexplicable dislike for someone? Or have you noticed how certain actions of others trigger an excessively strong emotional reaction in you? Jung argued that when we are irritated by certain qualities in others, it's often a reflection of those same qualities hidden in our own shadow. But what if this shadow holds the key to genuine self-knowledge? What if the parts of ourselves that we suppress and ignore are not enemies, but missing elements of our wholeness? This is Jung's great insight. Psychological development consists not in eradicating the dark sides, but in accepting them as an integral part of ourselves. This implies a courageous look into the most hidden corners of the subconscious, where rejected aspects of the self are concealed. It is in this confrontation with the unpleasant truth that lies the powerful potential for gaining inner strength, authenticity, and freedom from imposed illusions. The true path to oneself begins with a willingness to face the truth about one's own essence, to break the chains of false notions that have shaped the personality. This process will inevitably challenge established beliefs and open the doors to an authentic life. Most people, confident in their self-knowledge, define their identity through the lens of their name, profession, cultural affiliation, and past experiences. But what if we assume that a person's personality is much more multifaceted and complex than it seems at first glance? What if the familiar self is just a superficial construct, a small fraction of a boundless and profound reality? According to Carl Jung, a hidden world lies in the depths of the human psyche, a complex and multifaceted inner cosmos, holding the burden of forgotten memories, restrained feelings, unrealized aspirations, and dormant potential. Genuine self-knowledge, in his view, lies not in constructing a new personality, but in uncovering what is buried in the depths of one's own self. Take a moment to think. Have you ever experienced an inexplicable longing for something more? A feeling that there is a more perfect version of you, yearning to be realized? This is not just a figment of the imagination, but a call from your unconscious, beckoning you to new achievements. Jung called this process individuation, arguing that true satisfaction is achieved not by conforming to external standards, but through the harmonious integration of all facets of personality, both positive and negative, light and dark. However, before proceeding to integrate these aspects, it's necessary to confront them face to face. And it is at this stage that many fail. Why is this so? Meeting oneself can be a painful process. It requires a close look at those sides of the personality that one has carefully avoided. One has to rethink established beliefs, fight one's fears, and resolve internal contradictions that have significantly influenced life. Consider how often people avoid silence and solitude. Often, individuals distract themselves with work, social media, entertainment, or any other activity, just to avoid being alone with their thoughts. This desire for constant distraction is not accidental, but a defense mechanism, allowing one to avoid confronting the deep questions that are hidden in the subconscious. However, no matter how hard one tries to avoid meeting oneself, these hidden aspects do not disappear without a trace. They manifest in unexpected forms, such as anxiety, self-destructive behavior, unsatisfactory relationships, or a feeling of being lost. The renowned psychologist Jung argued that the unconscious is constantly trying to communicate with a person, but people have learned to ignore these messages. Nevertheless, if one begins to pay attention to these signals, one can see certain patterns and relationships, how the deepest emotional traumas influence the decisions one makes, how hidden desires shape actions, and why the objects of greatest fear often hold the most valuable life lessons. As an illustration, consider the widespread fear of being rejected. Many people live their lives in constant worry about being judged or abandoned. They strive to earn the approval of those around them, avoid conflict, and suppress their true thoughts and feelings to maintain a semblance of harmony. But what are the origins of this fear? Is it really just a fear of others' opinions, or does it stem from deeper, more hidden experiences? Perhaps it originates in an old emotional wound, a traumatic childhood experience, a moment when a person felt unnoticed or unworthy of love and attention. The renowned Swiss psychiatrist and philosopher Carl Jung argued that such fear is not merely a fleeting emotion, but a manifestation of the shadow side of the personality, an aspect of the self that has not been fully recognized and accepted. And until this aspect is brought to the light of consciousness, it will continue to exert a hidden influence on a person's actions, like a puppeteer pulling strings from behind the scenes. However, the most surprising thing is that when people find the courage to face these hidden parts of their personality, they lose their former power and control. Imagine for a moment. Imagine an existence where there is no room for the paralyzing fear of public condemnation, where words of truth flow freely and confidently from the lips. Imagine that every decision is dictated not by the ephemeral expectations of others, but by a deep inner resonance, in tune with the true self. This is the all-consuming power of individuation, the process of becoming not someone new and imposed, but the full realization of the potential of an already existing personality. But how to begin this exciting path of self-discovery? How to unleash the dormant, unconscious forces that insidiously shape the course of life? Carl Gustav Jung, the distinguished Swiss psychologist and philosopher, was convinced that symbols, dreams, and deep self-analysis serve as powerful keys to the treasure trove of the unconscious. He viewed dreams not simply as chaotic images, but as encrypted messages from the deeper self, shedding light on the hidden truths of the psyche, and proposed dream interpretation. Jung also emphasized the vital importance of creative self-expression. Art, whether painting, literature, or music, becomes a conductor, connecting the conscious with the unconscious. Through creativity, one gains access to those areas of the mind that are usually hidden from everyday perception and integrates them into their personality. However, perhaps the most important and at the same time simple step on the path of individuation is the development of awareness. At the very moment when a person begins to question their own thoughts, analyze their reactions to what is happening, and rethink deeply rooted beliefs, the process of transformation begins. A person takes the first confident steps on the path to transformation. The moment they stop running away from unpleasant sensations and begin to meet them with genuine interest, they gradually regain their true essence. And here's the truth. The vast majority of people live their lives as strangers to themselves. They steadfastly follow well-trodden paths, never realizing that they have enough power to choose a completely different path. They suppress their true nature, not understanding that their greatest strength lies in accepting everything they truly are. However, a person does not have to be one of these people. They have every opportunity to break free from the illusions that have long held them back, to shed the shackles of conditioning and fear that have prevented them from fully experiencing all the colors of life, to enter into the fullness of their self without the slightest fear or apology. And in the next chapter, we will delve into an even more fascinating topic, the hidden archetypes that lie dormant within each of us. These ancient patterns, deeply rooted in the human psyche, hold the key to unlocking their incredible potential. What the reader is about to learn has the power to forever transform their view of their own essence. If self-knowledge were as simple as making a fleeting decision, everyone would have long lived in harmony with their true self. However, as practice shows, this process is much deeper and more complex. It's not just about choosing a desired role, but about revealing the forces that have insidiously shaped the personality, about bravely confronting the rejected aspects of oneself and integrating them into a holistic, authentic individuality. A natural question arises: what makes us feel drawn to certain patterns of behavior, desires, or fears? Why do we repeat the same mistakes over and over again, or find ourselves in similar situations despite sincere attempts to change? The answer proposed by Carl Jung was a real breakthrough in psychology. He asserted that within each individual lie universal patterns, deeply ingrained psychological blueprints that exert a powerful influence on our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, often without our conscious awareness. He termed these patterns archetypes. Jung believed that archetypes are ancient, primordial images inherited from the collective unconscious of humanity. Deep within the human psyche, in a realm known as the collective unconscious, are stored universal images shared by all humanity and inherited from the experiences of past generations. These archetypes profoundly shape personality, influencing relationships with others and even the perception of reality. Consider the stories passed down through the ages: the hero's journey, the wise mentor's advice, the villain's treachery, the child's innocence. These characters, appearing in myths, religious teachings, literary works, and even dreams, are not merely figments of the imagination, but embody powerful psychological forces hidden within each of us. Whether we realize it or not, these archetypes are constantly playing out their roles in our lives. Take, for example, the archetype of the hero. It is that part of our essence that constantly strives to achieve a goal, feeling an inner call to something greater. It is what motivates us to overcome obstacles, become stronger, and reach new heights of self-improvement. However, this archetype does not exist in isolation. It is invariably accompanied by the shadow. The shadow, as previously noted, represents the suppressed and hidden aspects of the human personality. It is that area of the subconscious where fears, vulnerabilities, and even unrealized possibilities reside. In mythological tales, the hero invariably confronts the shadow, often appearing as a monster, adversary, or severe trial before achieving true development. Turning to real life, everyone is probably familiar with the situation when one recognizes the need for change, but internal resistance hinders action. The moment when the prospect of becoming a better version of oneself opens up, but fear, doubt, or self-destructive tendencies hold one back from taking a decisive step. This is the very inner struggle between the hero and his shadow. A common mistake is trying to suppress the shadow instead of trying to understand its nature. However, Carl Jung argued that true transformation occurs only when a person integrates their shadow, not rejecting it, but extracting valuable lessons from it. Suppose an individual experiences self-doubt. In that case, instead of ignoring this feeling or pretending it does not exist, one should. Carl Jung, a prominent researcher of the depths of the human psyche, would undoubtedly call for thorough self-analysis. What are the origins of this tormenting self-doubt? Is it really a product of personal experience and inner turmoil? Or do its roots lie in the past, sown by public opinion, imposed expectations, or critical remarks from others? What valuable lessons are hidden behind this insecurity? Perhaps deep within the doubts, there is some previously unseen strength, such as sincere humility, a tendency for deep self-analysis, or the ability to consider situations from various, sometimes unexpected points of view. When a person begins to perceive inner struggle not as a manifestation of weakness, but as an important message emanating from the depths of the unconscious, a radical change in worldview occurs. However, the archetypes discovered by Jung are not limited to the images of the hero and shadow. Within each person, there are many other powerful forces, each playing a unique role in the process of forming a unique personality. One of the most significant is the archetype of the anima and animus. Jung believed that a hidden feminine essence, the anima, slumbers in the soul of every man, while a hidden masculine side, the animus, lies in the heart of every woman. It is important to emphasize that this is not about gender in the physical sense, but about achieving a harmonious balance of energies within each individual. The anima embodies intuition, a rich spectrum of emotions, inexhaustible creative potential, and a deep connection with the unconscious. The animus embodies logical thinking, clear structure, strict discipline, and an unwavering pursuit of goals. When these two fundamental forces are in harmonious balance, the individual feels the fullness of their being. However, disrupting this balance inevitably leads to internal discord, generating agonizing contradictions. For example, a man who consciously rejects the manifestations of his anima often faces serious difficulties in expressing his own emotions, fearing that showing vulnerability will be seen by others as a sign of weakness. In turn, a woman who suppresses her animus may experience self-doubt and indecisiveness, preventing her from taking responsibility for her own life and making important decisions. However, when these energies are accepted and acknowledged, instead of being suppressed and denied, they transform into an inexhaustible source of inner strength and confidence. This understanding leads us to one of the most significant truths discovered by Carl Jung. To achieve genuine self-realization, it is necessary to accept all aspects of one's personality, including the light and dark sides, the masculine and feminine principles, the known and unknown facets. The process of individuation is not about striving to become someone else, but about achieving wholeness and harmony within oneself. But there is one more final element to this complex puzzle, a final revelation that ties everything together and is perhaps the most powerful and significant of all. On the path of self-discovery, colossal obstacles arise, and it's not just the fear that paralyzes movement, or the shaky belief in one's own strength, or the influence from the outside, like marionette strings. The obstacle lies much deeper. It lurks in the very core of our perception of the world. And further, we will lift the veil of secrecy over this phenomenon. The upcoming revelation is capable of turning established ideas about oneself upside down and perhaps forever changing the trajectory of life. In this exciting journey, we have explored the hidden forces that subtly shape personality, analyzed the masks we are forced to wear, studied the shadow sides that we diligently suppress, and considered the archetypes that influence our thoughts and actions. But now we have to face the deepest illusion, the deceptive mirage of the self. The vast majority of people live their lives firmly believing in the immutability of their personality, believing that they represent a single, unchanging self that moves through time, accumulating memories and experiences. However, Carl Jung, along with many outstanding philosophers and mystics, came to a radical conclusion. The self is by no means a static, frozen entity. Human essence is dynamic, subject to continuous transformations, and significantly exceeds the narrow confines of habitual ideas. What if the current perception of oneself is just a fragment of a mosaic, the elements of which form something immeasurably greater? Suppose the personality with which an individual identifies is just one manifestation of an all-encompassing consciousness, evolved over centuries, enriched by life experience and inherited wisdom of generations. Carl Jung explored this concept through the prism of the self, implying not an egocentric I, enslaved by stereotypes and fears, but an authentic essence, encompassing the totality of human existence beyond illusory ideas about self-identity. This awareness is both hopeful and awe-inspiring, as it implies that the beliefs that define personality, fears, and self-limitations, as well as the stories with which one surrounds oneself, are only a partial truth, an ephemeral construct created by the mind. And this is the fundamental truth. A person is not just an isolated being mechanically moving along the path of life. Imagine a boundless, intertwined space of mind, a repository of age-old wisdom, mysterious depths of the subconscious, and incredible transforming potential. However, a natural question arises. If this is really so, why does humanity so often feel the shackles of limitations, facing the torments of suffering, the pangs of doubt, and the paralyzing horror of fear? The answer, paradoxically, lies in the ego. The ego, contrary to popular belief, is not the worst enemy. It is just a component of the mind, skillfully creating the illusion of separation. That very inner voice that persistently whispers, "This is my essence, and this is a reality alien to me." It erects impregnable wall, draws boundaries, and tightly binds to familiar but limiting patterns of behavior. And although the ego performs a certain function, it also becomes a colossal obstacle on the path to genuine self-discovery. The truth is that a person is not limited by the narrow confines of a single identity. He is a being in a continuous process of transformation. And at the very moment when he lets go of the tenacious grip on the established idea of himself, a kaleidoscope of limitless possibilities opens up before him. But how to take this bold step? How to break free from the captivity of the illusory self and enter into the fullness of one's true existence? Carl Jung proposed a method for achieving the integrity of the personality, requiring considerable courage, thoughtful immersion in oneself, and openness to revising established ideas about oneself. First of all, it is necessary to accept the unknown. For the most part, humanity fears the unknown because it represents a lack of clarity and predictability. However, it is in the realm of the unknown that opportunities for personal growth and profound transformation lie. As soon as an individual ceases to resist the mysteries lurking in their inner world and begins to explore them with lively curiosity, a completely new vision of themselves and the surrounding reality opens up. Secondly, one should abandon the desire to label. A person is not exhausted by a name, profession, life experience, or habitual role. A person is something much more, going beyond any definition. By freeing themselves from the rigid framework of self-identification, they create space for the disclosure of their true potential. Thirdly, it is necessary to learn to listen to the voice of the unconscious. Dreams, instincts, and intuitive insights do not arise spontaneously. They are messages from the deep self, pointing the way to wholeness. The more attentive a person is to these internal signals, the stronger their connection with their own I becomes. As one progresses along the path of life, one begins to notice recurring events, amazing coincidences, and symbols indicating the right direction. It is important to fully trust this process of self-discovery, because finding yourself is not a specific goal that can be achieved and forgotten. It is a continuous journey during which newer and deeper layers of truth are revealed. And then, finally, comes the realization. In fact, a person was never lost. They have always been here. That very I that they had been searching for so long has always been inside, patiently waiting for the moment when they would be remembered. Now everyone is faced with a choice: to continue to exist as a small part of their true essence, bound by outdated fears and false notions, or to boldly step into the unknown, accepting their vast, limitless nature, which was originally destined to become. True life begins only when a person finds themselves, and now they know this path.